Welcome to the Cover Your Assets podcast, a show for the physician who understands the importance of protecting everything you've worked so hard to achieve. If you're ready to find the peace of mind that only financial security can bring, let's get started. Here's your host, Billy Gwaltney.
Hello, welcome to today's episode of the Cover Your Assets podcast. I'm your host, Billy Gwaltney, and I'm excited to be with you as always. The title of today's topic is Buyer Beware. The term own occupation means different things depending on the type of policy that you're buying. And I discuss this a lot in working with thousands of physicians across the country, helping them purchase their private specialty disability coverage. The topic of what does this definition of disability mean comes up pretty much in every conversation. And then it also comes up as people transition to working with an employer as an attending, where they often have a group policy through their employer, a long-term disability policy. And so I want to dive into the differences and how it ultimately is on you to make sure you understand what these differences are. And that's why the buyer beware part, because there is that component to this. First, there are two types of disability policies. The first one is an employer provided a group long-term disability policy. You can also get them through certain associations, but generally speaking, as physicians, as you progress through your career, you'll have the option or the requirement that an employer gives you a group long-term disability policy that would kick in after an elimination period and pay up to some type of retirement age. And this is a type of policy where by law, they have to cover everyone regardless of health, okay? A term called adverse selection kicks in when this happens. That can bankrupt insurance companies. They are petrified of adverse selection. Adverse selection means having to pay benefits for people that they otherwise would have excluded from getting benefits had they had the ability to pre-screen them before the policy started. Okay. In an employer marketplace, if you go to work, it doesn't matter who the employer is. They have to cover everyone. The least healthy employee gets the same policy that the healthiest employee gets. And the way insurance companies handle adverse selection is by watering down the definitions, okay? And this is not your employer's fault. And it also doesn't matter who your employer is. It's not like if you go to a more distinguished employer that the policy somehow avoids these pitfalls. It might have better wording attached to it. There may be a better marketing piece attached to it that you get. But ultimately, these gaps are there. And so they use terms that say own occupation, specialty specific, as it relates to the definition of disability. And that's unfortunate because the second type of policy is a private individual policy that if it's done correctly would contain what most people understand, and when we discuss it, what makes sense to people as having the true specialty own occupation definition of disability. Okay, so let's talk about the employer policy first, the group policy that covers everybody. You don't have to be medically screened for it. It's offered to everybody regardless of their income level. It's usually offered to all physicians or all people in that group. Even when they use the term own occupation, how they define that is very broad. Every time I've read it, it's going to state that if you can't do physician duties in general, or if it is a specialty, it could relate to certain areas of the specialty, but all of those duties that specialty could do. And so at the time of claim, it can get muddy really quick in terms of whether or not you meet the threshold for being disabled. If someone, here's the issue with this is that the vast majority of disabilities are not catastrophic. The majority of claims are illnesses. Over 90% of claims are illnesses. The vast or significant percentage of those are musculoskeletal conditions. So you hurt your back and you can't go into work, but you can do virtual medicine. You can log in from a laptop at home. You can consult, you can teach, you can do other things. So are you now disabled? And this is a question that comes up whether you're a surgeon or a non-surgeon. If you were physically showing up and you can't physically show up, are you now disabled? With an employer policy, the way they define that, it could include virtual medicine. It can include telemedicine. The way they define that, it can be very broad. And so in working with thousands of physicians across the country, we do have clients on claim, unfortunately. The good news is that the second type of policy that we have with our clients, all of our clients on claim get paid, but a significant percentage of them, maybe even the majority of them, never collect from their employer policy because they're just not disabled enough. Or they start collecting and then they show the slightest hint of recovering and getting better, and they stop the payment. It's just very labor intensive to file the claim and to make sure you're getting the benefit. They're going to fight you along the way. And generally speaking, the threshold for being disabled is much greater in a group long-term disability policy. The second type of policy, the policy that I help clients with, is what's called an individual or private specialty disability policy. And if it's done correctly, there are only currently 4 companies that offer this type of coverage, and it's possible to have the right company and not have the right definitions. And so it's not a given just because you have an individual policy that it's going to contain this definition. It's vital to make sure that you read the contract and confirm the true specialty definition of disability, which means 2 things. One, it means if an illness or injury prevents you from doing the material duties of your specialty or subspecialty, then you are totally disabled for policy purposes. You get your benefit, okay? The second part of that definition is that there's then no penalty for income you later earn doing something different, okay? So if you were physically required to show up to work and you can't show up to work, then under these policies, you would be considered disabled. You would collect your benefit. Then you would have the freedom to choose to do telemedicine if you wanted to from home, or consult or write a book or teach or whatever you want to do, and make an unlimited income doing that, and they would not penalize your disability benefit. Okay, that's the best definition you can get. And that's what we help our clients get. Or you want to make sure whoever you're working with can confirm with you in writing where that definition is. It is truly buyer beware when it comes to this definition of disability. The devil is in the details. Again, you can have an individual policy that doesn't have those definitions, but if you do it right, your individual policy will. I have yet to see, in years and years of doing this, a group policy that contains that definition. Okay, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I am saying I've never seen it. And we've got clients that work at the nicest facilities, the most prestigious employers on the planet when it comes to healthcare. And that definition is not present whenever an insurance company has to cover everybody. It's adverse selection. It's the nature of the beast. The insurance world is quirky. Disability is probably one of the most quirky types of insurance. So just make sure you work with a specialist, hopefully me. I'd love to work with everybody. But hey, whoever it is, just make sure that they know this, they understand this, and they can point it to you in writing. I would be happy to discuss this with you further in more detail regarding your particular situation, review what you have, answer questions. Please feel free to reach out to me. You can text me at 704-270-2376. Again, 704-270-2376, and we can arrange a time to discuss. Until we meet again, thank you for your time as always. Grateful for that. Very grateful. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Cover Your Assets podcast, a Work P2P production. New episodes drop every 2 weeks. If you've enjoyed the conversation, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. For more tips and advice, visit the website and YouTube channel. Check the show notes for links. Join us next time for another episode dedicated to helping physicians like you get your disability insurance right and protect your way of life.